The story begins with a striking contrast. In the United States today, farmers are facing the highest equipment costs in a generation. Diesel keeps jumping, loan interest keeps rising, and agricultural unions warn that the pressure on American food production is reaching a breaking point. But across the ocean, in a country the West long dismissed as too poor to build its own machines, something unexpected is happening. Burkina Faso has just stopped $3.40 to $4 billion worth of American and European farming machinery at its borders, and at the center of this shock is President Ibrahim Traoré, a leader who has decided to redefine what power and independence look like in Africa. His government announced that foreign machines would no longer dictate African agriculture, no more waiting months for spare parts, no more paying for software just to start a tractor, and no more dependence on companies thousands of miles away. Western governments called this move hostile, but for many Africans, it felt like respect. Finally, a farmer from Koudougou put it simply, when your tools are made by others, you borrow their purpose, but when your tools are made by your own people, you reclaim your dignity. While America is dealing with internal pressure, political division, and struggling farm economics, Burkina Faso is choosing something different: industrial independence. This decision didn't come out of nowhere. It grew from years of frustration, machines arriving late, breaking fast, and trapping farmers in expensive foreign service contracts. Traoré's message was clear: a continent that grows food must build its own tools. And with that, the machinery block began quietly. At 4:20 a.m., at the port of Timor, customs officials stopped shipments labeled advanced tractor systems and precision harvest units. For years these imports passed freely, but under the new Industrial Sovereignty Directive, any machine that Africa could build itself was placed on hold. What they froze shocked everyone. Billions of dollars in Western machinery meant for farms, companies, and government programs. American suppliers protested immediately. German exporters sounded the alarm. Brussels accused Burkina Faso of obstructing the market. But in West Africa, leaders saw something else: a chance to break free from 60 years of quiet dependence. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger had already begun producing tractors, engines, steel frames, and gearboxes. A new factory in Ouagadougou built its first 46 tractors. Mali supplied parts, Niger provided steel. Together, they formed the first African machinery corridor, the continent's first real attempt to challenge Western dominance in agricultural tools. Meanwhile, the human stories on the ground showed why this mattered. A young metal worker sanding a prototype tractor said, "Our machines might not shine like the European ones, but if they break, we fix them. No one can lock the toolbox." That simple sentence carried more power than any diplomatic statement. In Washington, fear began to rise. If Africa built its own tractors, America's $28 billion export market could collapse. Germany reacted even faster, warning of factory closures and supply chain breakdowns if African alternatives succeeded. But in African cities, the mood was different. Students marched with cardboard tractors, radio callers debated a new industrial age, villages pooled money to send apprentices to technical schools. For the first time, young people talked about staying, not crossing deserts. And then came their statistic that hit the West hardest: African-built machines were already 32% cheaper than European imports. In the eyes of many Africans, this wasn't protectionism, it was survival. Still, everyone knew the risks. Would the US respond with tariffs? Would Europe block African machinery from its markets? Would sanctions return? Quietly or openly, families whispered these fears around dinner tables. Yet the tone across the continent was not fear, it was determination. Dignity has its price, elders said. And we are finally willing to pay it. This dispute is no longer about tractors, it's about who gets to shape Africa's future. For decades, Western influence relied on supply chains, machinery, seeds, software locks, spare parts, control the tools, control the decisions. The machinery block threatens that entire system. China sees opportunity, Russia calls it a symbolic victory, the Middle East shows interest, and Africa, for the first time, is setting the tone, not reacting to it, but the biggest question is still unresolved. Can Africa not only build its own machines, but withstand the global pressure that will come with that choice? America is facing its own economic struggles. Africa is facing the cost of claiming its independence. This moment will shape the next decade, not because of the machines themselves, but because of the courage to build them. The story begins with a surprising contrast. In the United States today, farmers are facing one of the toughest seasons in years. Machinery prices have hit record highs, diesel remains unstable, interest rates keep rising, and farmer unions warn that America's food system is entering a breaking point. But across the ocean, in a small West African nation many Western analysts once dismissed as too poor to build heavy machines, something unexpected is unfolding. Burkina Faso has just blocked over $3.44 billion worth of American and European agricultural machinery from entering its borders. At the center of this decision is Ibrahim Traoré, a leader who believes power in Africa must be rebuilt from the soil upward. His government declared that foreign machines would no longer dominate African farms, no longer decide when seeds could be planted or how long farmers must wait for parts stuck in overseas warehouses. To Washington and Berlin, this was a hostile move, but to millions of Africans, it felt like the return of dignity. A farmer from Koudougou put it simply, when a tool is built by foreign hands, you borrow its purpose. When it is built by your own hands, you reclaim your future. That one quiet sentence carried more weight than any headline, because it reflected a continent tired of dependency, and finally ready to rewrite its story. In Washington, analysts quietly admitted what politicians avoided saying: Africa building its own machines is not a trade dispute, it is a strategic shift that weakens Western leverage. For decades, countries depended on the US and EU for seeds, machines, spare parts, and farming software. Dependency created influence, influence shaped policy. Now, that chain is breaking. China, Russia, and the Middle East sensed opportunity. They offered partnerships and supply deals. For the first time in a long time, Africa was not being shaped by the world. Africa was shaping the world. Burkina Faso has chosen a harder road, a road of independence. The factories in Ouagadougou are small compared to Detroit or Munich, but they carry something more powerful than size, the possibility of African self-reliance. But history teaches a painful lesson. When a region breaks free from economic control, the powers that once benefited rarely stand aside quietly. Tariffs may rise, sanctions may return, aid may be frozen. Pressure may come from every direction, but Africans across the Sahel say the same thing. Whatever the cost, dignity has its own price. In the end, the defining question is no longer, can Africa build its own machines? It is, can Africa withstand the consequences of standing up?